this edition of Southern Newsweek. While thousands are in support of legalising euthanasia, a local academic says we need to be wary of overuse. The murder of a British MP prompts some of Dunedin's MPs to reflect upon the nature of their jobs. And the future of a building with historical ties is up in the air, so City Hall is calling on residents for ideas. Kia ora, I'm Holly Buchanan. A movement to legalise euthanasia in New Zealand is drawing some criticism from a local ethics academic. 22,000 people have had their say on the call for an inquiry into public opinion on assisted dying. But there's concern locally that if the practice is legalised, it may be overused.
Taking notes on a contentious issue, thousands of Kiwis are having their say regarding the controversial topic of legalising euthanasia. It's an issue one local academic says he sees both sides of.
I know that there's always a lot of support in the community for the idea of making death less of an ordeal, less suffering, and therefore of dealing in an understanding and caring manner for people that are dying by offering them the choice.
Gillette has been researching euthanasia since 1983. He believes legalising voluntary euthanasia may lead to an increase of people using the option as it becomes normalised. He also says it could bring up additional problems around who meets the requirements to end their own life.
Whether it should be restricted, whether there are people who go through intolerable suffering, even though they don't fit the normal groups that would spring to mind, that becomes an issue as well.
Gillette believes the government are apprehensive to discuss the topic as they don't want to be seen to take sides in such a moral issue. He says the medical sector is generally against it as they are under oath to take care of people's health, but he thinks there is a chance that the practice could become legal in the future.
I think that's actually quite likely. I think our new generation of medical students whom we are now educating will have to broaden their minds and deepen their humanity.
The Voluntary Euthanasia Society has said it's received 22,000 submissions on the petition that sought an inquiry into public opinion and a law change. The final tally of submissions is yet to be confirmed by the Health Select Committee. Annabelle Dick, 39, Dunedin News.
University of Otago researchers are being allocated millions of dollars in funding from the New Zealand Health Research Council. Staff say the almost $44 million grant shows the council has faith in the work being done in Dunedin. And the extra funding may lead to important innovation in the health sector long term.
Checking the figures. The University of Otago has just received more than $43 million from the Health Research Council in its latest funding round. Professor Richard Blakey is the institution's Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Research, and he says the announcement reflects the faith the council has in the university.
We received $43.8 million in this latest Health Research Council funding round, which is, as far as I'm aware, the biggest win ever for the University of Otago out of the Health Research Council.
He says the money will help with a raft of research projects, which will hopefully benefit the country long term.
Through taxpayer funding, the value of health research is evident, and these projects and programs will deliver things of real and tangible benefit for New Zealanders.
Blakey says receiving the grant money helps cement Otago's researchers as world leaders in several research areas.
The competitive nature of these funds is such that anything that gets funded has to be at the cutting edge of its discipline. So yes, there will be areas where we lead the world. There will be areas where we bring in the leading international collaborators to work with us to help address issues. And I think importantly, there's a number of areas where we are the only place in the world to do the research, particularly in areas of Māori health.
The Dunedin study, which has been tracking the birth, growth and development of a group of Dunedin residents since the 1970s, is one project which has received further funding. It's being joined by a new but similar study in Christchurch.
Viewers in Dunedin might be very pleased to know that there are now 2 Otago University longitudinal studies that will be funded in parallel, the Dunedin study, which we're all very familiar with, but there's a second cohort study out of Christchurch that also received a program of funding.
A handful of academic fields have been funded, including research into Māori mental health, the effects of vaporising tobacco, and many more. Daryl Baser, 39, Dunedin News.
A local academic says there needs to be a review of the country's compensation guidelines in the wake of the Taina Pora case. Pora spent more than 20 years in jail before his convictions were quashed by the Privy Council. But his recently released compensation figure is causing outrage for being too low.
An apology more than 20 years overdue. University of Otago's Dean of Law, Mark Kinahan, is looking over the government formal apology to Taina Pora. It's a case he and many others believe to be one of New Zealand's greatest miscarriage of justice.
I think it is a massive injustice, and there is evidence, and the QC did say this, that the police had awareness at various stages that they weren't convinced that he was the one there. There was no real evidence that he was really present, and they kind of knew of his ability to, his confession wasn't really probably appropriate.
Pora was imprisoned in 1994 for the murder of Susan Burdett. He was released in 2014 and had his conviction quashed soon after. Pora recently received an apology from both the government and the police alongside an offer of $2.5 million of compensation. It's a figure Hinahan says is too low.
I don't know how you put a price on the fact that for 21 years of your life you can't form relationships with anyone. You don't see your child very often. The sadness and emotional sort of upset you have to go through, knowing you're sitting somewhere with knowing you haven't done anything wrong.
The existing compensation guideline that the government uses is $100,000 per year of imprisonment, which has been standard since for more than 20 years. Hinahan says the power of spending $100,000 is far less today than it was back then.
In 1998, $100,000 was worth a lot more than it is now. I mean, probably could buy a house anywhere in the country for $100,000 in 1998. And in fact, the QC retired Justice Rodney Hanson recommended that the government should adjust for inflation.
Hinahan says the $2.5 million compensation figure is around half what he thinks Pora deserves for being wrongfully imprisoned. It's understood that Pora's legal team had originally asked for around $8 million. Annabelle Dick, 39, Dunedin News.
Second-year social work students at Otago Polytechnic are being encouraged to take a practical approach to their studies. One group is helping raise both awareness and money for organisations working in the area of domestic violence. And for some of those taking part, it's a topic that's close to home.
Cupcakes for a cause. This group of second-year social services students is spending the day raising awareness about domestic violence. Set up in the Otago Polytechnic hub space, the Wahine Toa group are openly discussing the issue and selling cupcakes to raise funds for several organisations working in the family violence sphere. It's a topic that student Tanya Gilbert Kennedy knows all too well.
My involvement is from a personal perspective, taken from a childhood of in family violence. So I'm aware, having had some personal experience myself, and that would be the same for many of us that are here.
Fellow student Whenau Murphy says she's had a little experience with family violence, but it's still a topic not often spoken about in the Pacifica community.
Maybe because I've had people that I know that has been affected by domestic violence, and basically sometimes from the Pacific perspective, from the Pacific community, it's more of a hush topic, and it needs to be opened.
Both women reluctantly admit they feel brave sharing their stories, agreeing that silence just isn't an option.
Yes, I do actually feel brave, especially representing the people who've told me their stories, and I'm sort of, advocating it on their behalf.
In a room behind the set-up table, a film of survivors' stories compiled by the students is playing. 39 Dunedin News has agreed not to show the footage to respect the privacy of the victims. The conversation will continue beyond this event, with a gathering planned in Dunedin later this month, calling for justice for Moko Rangitohiriri, a 3-year-old child beaten to death last year. Daryl Baser, 39 Dunedin News.
Residents are having their say about the future of a historic piece of land at Ocean Grove. The Dunedin City Council is calling on public submissions for what should be done with the former Tomahawk school site. But some in the area say the consultation is overdue.
Having a good look around, the former Tomahawk school site has been open to the public for walkthrough in the hope of conjuring ideas on what to do on the land.
We've just opened up the buildings here and got some lighting in so people can see inside the buildings and have a good look around the sites here, just to make their own assessments on what the future use of this site and these buildings could be.
Tomahawk School closed in 2010 and has been owned by the council since 2012. Now the DCC are calling for expressions of interest on how to utilise the 1.6 hectare site. Tomahawk residents are wary about what to do with the piece of history in their backyard, and they want to see something done with the community in mind.
It's been a long time coming. 3 years we've been waiting for this since I've been on the community board, but finally we're at that stage, and I think that the issue now is for the community to have a look and decide what they want to do.
The purpose of the open day is to allow people to look at the building and its structural integrity. DCC staff are then asking residents to create comprehensive proposals while keeping funding in mind so they can create a short list of some ideas. Although ideas have been floating around what to do with the contentious site, no submissions have been lodged yet.
Only opened last Friday and we're running it for 6 weeks. A bit longer than usual submissions, but just give people to take time, get together in groups and have a good think.
The site will be opened up to the public again at the end of this month. Once the submission process closes, proposals will be assessed and presented to the Council's Community and Environment Committee. Annabelle Dick, 39, Dunedin News.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, researching eels has earned a local student a scholarship that'll see her heading to Japan. And some of the city's Catholic parishes merge with the official opening of the South Dunedin Basilica. Welcome back. South Dunedin's largest church is once again open to the public after a 4-year redevelopment project. The refurbishment of St Patrick's Basilica was unveiled at the weekend, marking the official merger of a handful of Catholic churches into one large parish. And church staff say it's a symbol of better things to come.
Celebrating a new beginning. St Patrick's Basilica in South Dunedin is open once again after a lengthy redevelopment project. Members of the community have gathered alongside local politicians to mark the occasion.
Today marks the end of our project of developing St Patrick's, not only the Basilica but the site here in South Dunedin. And we had it opened by Bishop Colin Campbell, the Bishop of the Diocese.
The parish started developing their community centre in 2012, but work on the refurbishment has been 10 years in the making. Parish leaders say it's good to finally be open and have the facilities available for the public to use.
It's a great feeling to be finished and great to sort of finally be in the Basilica, worshipping here on a Sunday and having the facilities to really begin focusing on what we're here for.
Ainsley says the build came as 4 South Dunedin parishes decided to merge due to the dwindling number of churchgoers. The 3 other Catholic churches closed on Palm Sunday and moved to the St Patrick's Basilica under the new name of Mercy Parish, Whānau Aroha. Ainsley says while it's unfortunate parishes are closing, this one will create a larger, stronger Catholic community.
The project itself has probably been 10 years in the making, and the 10 years in the making have been 4 parishes working together to become one, and this being established as their key area.
While the majority of the renovation work is complete, Ainsley says there's a few final tweaks still to be made. The interior will be painted in the next couple of years, giving those who've worked so hard on the redevelopment time to enjoy what they've already achieved. Annabelle Dick, 39, Dunedin News.
A University of Otago student is one of a group selected for this year's Prime Minister's Asia Awards. The zoology student, whose research focuses on New Zealand eels, is off to Hokkaido later this year, and she's looking forward to studying her eel's Japanese counterparts.
A slither of eels. This large tub is a temporary home for some of the University of Otago's eels that are the finned family of researcher Georgia Thompson-Lang. However, the recent graduate will soon be leaving them behind to study their Japanese counterparts, after receiving a Prime Minister's Award for Asian Study.
It's just an amazing opportunity. I wasn't really expecting to get the scholarship, to be honest. I just applied because I thought it would be great, and I've never travelled to Asia before, or Japan, and so getting the opportunity to go to experience a different culture and a different in a different lab environment and get to see how science works overseas, and it's just an amazing opportunity.
Thompson Lang is among 124 recipients of the award and says she only came across the opportunity by chance.
I kind of knew about it through actually a friend who let me know about it, and I went onto the website, and so I went through the application process, and yeah, it was just an opportunity because I wanted to do some research in Japan for my master's thesis, and it was a really good opportunity to get some funding behind it.
As a master's student, Thompson Lang has been specialising in fish reproductive biology and says she's looking forward to studying Japanese eels in Hokkaido.
I've always been interested in zoology, animals, for as long as I can remember, and I really like the inner workings of animals, and reproductive biology lets me investigate how the reproductive biology works, and it's a really hands-on field of science.
Thompson Lang leaves for Japan in September, giving her enough time to say goodbye to her slippery southern friends. Daryl Baser, 39, Dunedin News.
And just ahead on Southern Newsweek, Māori art lovers are in for a real treat, and we head to Wanaka to find out what's new at Cadrona. Welcome back. A group of Māori and Pacifica artists are exploring the darker side of life in a new seasonal exhibition. The show is incorporating a range of mediums including fine art, painting, sculpture and film. And while the subject matter is dark, it's helping shine a light on some bright new talent.
Breaking down stereotypes. Wellington-based artist Tokarau Wilson has returned to his former home in Dunedin, where he's put together a collection of artists for an exhibition looking at the darker side of life.
This exhibition's called Te Po, which is actually means a time of darkness and ignorance. So the show's a Māori Pacifica goth contemporary art show.
Wilson says while to some it may seem like a new culture or subculture, he says it's been around since the 1980s.
Yeah, I wanted to do a Matariki show that involved lots of artists. I feel like Māori and Pacifica goth is a genre that isn't really explored much or defined as a genre, so I was really hoping that by saying what it is, that people would accept it as a genre.
Wilson says the reference to Te Po is an attempt to shine a light on what he sees as a cultural ignorance in the issues some people face in New Zealand.
Just I think within New Zealand there's a lot of people not realising that their situation's actually perhaps quite privileged, or even just being aware of how many homeless people there are on the streets.
Te Po features work from Pio Pio Mai Ture, Ricky Taniwha, Lance Strickland and many others. The show is on until Saturday. Daryl Baser, 39, Dunedin News.
A Dunedin man is sharpening his skills along with his knives ahead of a national butchery competition. Butcher Ben Henry has just been named the Regional Apprentice Butcher of the Year, an award he's won 3 years running. And he's hoping to end his apprenticeship with a win.
Do not try this at home. Apprentice butcher Ben Henry is in the final stages of his training ahead of a national butchery competition later this year. He's just returned from Christchurch, where he came out on top of the South Island competition for the 3rd year in a row.
Pretty exciting, pretty relieved to be honest. Quite happy that I managed to go up and beat the Cantabs at their game, which was really cool.
Despite having multiple wins under his belt, Henry remains humble about his achievements. He says he just gets on with it, even when faced with some challenging tasks.
We get 3 primal cuts from both pork, beef and chicken. This year it was a full sirloin with a butt of fillet still on, it's beef sirloin, sorry, a pork shoulder as well as a slice of meat chicken, and we graded on what we produce, how we produce it, cooking ability, sellability, hygiene, personal and both work environments.
He'll be ineligible to compete in next year's competition, as he's graduating from his 3-year apprenticeship at the end of this year. But he's happy to pass on his wisdom to anyone else keen to sharpen their skills and compete.
The most important thing is be yourself, be creative, be proud of what you do. You do it every day, why can't you show the world what you do?
Henry says he simply did what he and his fellow New World colleagues do each day in the butchery department. That skill of converting large amounts of meat into saleable products, hopefully taking him all the way to a national championship. Daryl Baser, 39, Dunedin News.
Local school children are getting a lesson in health and well-being with the help of an unconventional teacher. The Life Education Trust is travelling around Dunedin schools with sidekick Harold the giraffe, and it's hoping to create an even better program for children.
Putting a spin on traditional teaching. These children are learning about the respiratory system as part of the Life Education Trust's health program.
In this particular session, they're going to see Harold going to visit one of his friends, Dan the diver, and we're going to be learning some more about breathing. We'll get to work with some of the equipment that we have in the classroom, Carpet Kid. Kids will get to see some of the different parts involved with breathing, and they'll get a bit of hands-on as well.
The program teaches young children about aspects of well-being like nutrition, body and self-esteem. The children are taught in a mobile classroom with sound, visuals and a mascot, Harold the giraffe, to make the experience entertaining.
Harold's the igniter, so when the kids come in, they're all excited to see Harold. He comes up and says hi to start with, and then the wee kids are all keen to see him, and then Harold will do some sharing with them about what they're going to be learning about, so they get them ready for their learning.
The charitable trust has been running for 27 years and teaches 245,000 children each year. Staff travel all over the country to provide a fun alternative method of teaching that fits in with the school's curriculum. The trust is wanting to grow the program by upgrading their mobile to a 3G to provide better facilities to the children.
Staying within the health side of things, but upgrading of the technology we use and interactive walls and better lighting and all those sorts of things.
The program will travel to 4 other primary and high schools as part of the tour at the end of the month. Annabelle Dick, 39, Dunedin News.
A new 35-metre long snow-covered tunnel is finally open at Cadrona Alpine Resort. The new structure is the first of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere and is designed to protect those new to skiing. And the safe environment comes with a pretty good view.
Cruising through a state-of-the-art tunnel, skiers at Cadrona Alpine Resort are getting a break from the elements inside a new 160-metre conveyor tunnel designed to protect first-timers.
We designed it for over 200 kilometres per hour, so significant foundations have gone under, so you can't actually see them, but huge concrete blocks that are anchor bolted into the ground, so significant winds.
The $300,000 tunnel was primarily made from perspex with aluminium framing, making it robust while also giving users a good view. Cadrona is the first ski field in the Southern Hemisphere to install the type of tunnel, something Barnes is incredibly proud of.
Our focus is around giving the best experience to our guests, and we wanted to be the first in the Southern Hemisphere to have these galleries. It's quite common in the Northern Hemisphere, but we're very happy to bring this down south.
Barnes says he often draws inspiration from overseas ski fields when thinking about improving the local facility. His main concern is around guest safety, and he says the tunnel is one way of addressing that.
One of the key focuses that we're really aspiring for is improving the guest safety. With the high winds, we've experienced people getting blown off the lifts, as a lot of places do. And by putting the tunnel on board here, that you don't get that at all anymore, so you get a really comfortable ride going up.
The tunnel is part of a $3 million Valley View development aimed at opening up extra terrain on the lower mountain. It's all about giving snow lovers the best experience possible during the 4-month ski season. Ruby McAndrew, 39, Dunedin News.
And finally, thousands of people, young and old, stayed out after dark to pack the Octagon recently. They were there to celebrate the annual Midwinter Carnival, which saw more than 400 lanterns light the central city. And the warm weather helped bring out the biggest crowd to date.
Lighting the central city in a creative way. Thousands of revellers joined a crowd of performers to shout down the Octagon for the annual Midwinter Carnival. The awestruck attendees were treated to a parade of lanterns in all shapes and sizes.
So we had about 1,000 lanterns made by the community, made by the kids and their families that came to our lantern making workshops, and about 120 other lanterns. So some of them are, and about 5 giant lanterns.
The theme for this year's event was Future Worlds, which many performers embraced wholeheartedly with both their costumes and lanterns. Synod says the event was made that much better thanks to an unseasonably warm Dunedin night.
The weather is perfect. We couldn't have hoped for a better atmosphere, better weather and a better turnout. It's been perfect.
The calm conditions were also perfect for a fireworks display following the parade. It was the bright colours and loud noises that delighted many of those gathered.
I like the fireworks. I like the whale.
You like the whale, did you?
And the fireworks. I like the lanterns.
Which one?
I like the rocket.
The rocket?
Yeah, the rockets and drums.
I think it was just great to see everyone out and about, all the floats and stuff that people have. I think it's awesome that people go out for their own time and just put a lot of effort into it. So yeah, I think it was great.
Last year, around 10,000 people attended the parade, and Synod estimates this year exceeded that substantially. That's got organisers thinking about staging a bigger parade with a longer route next year. Ruby McAndrew, 39, Dunedin News.
And that's all for this edition of Southern Newsweek. Remember to check us out on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, or you can take a look at our website at dunedintv.co.nz. I'm Holly Buchanan. Thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.